Hey gang, Malcolm here. It's about 6:25, and I'm about to play my fourth game in round five of the U.S. Open Chess Championships. I'm playing Harrison Quinn, who's an unrated player. The point he has is from a non-taken buy, so he gets a 1 point buy because he didn't sign up for taking a buy, and then he has two losses to a 2038 and a 1667, and a draw to a 1419. So his computer rating is like 1343, which puts him just above where I am right now. I think my in progress rating is 1288. My rating from before the tournament is 1246. So this should be a good battle. I get to play white, so that's great. But I need to put on socks and shoes and head over to the tournament hall because I don't have that much time before the round and I have to walk over there. I'm trying to take yesterday's loss in stride and recognize that if I can have a winning position against an 1838, then that means I can have a winning position against anybody lower than that, and I should have an easier time converting. I'm hopeful this doesn't take too long, and I'm going to be streaming when I go do the recap of this later tonight. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys online then. See you then.
Okay, guys. Hope you're all doing well. It is about 10 p.m. and I just started streaming, and I just got done with my fourth game, or round five of the U.S. Open Chess Championships. And I was playing Harrison Quinn, Harrison Quinn. It turns out he had found my Twitch stream before the game and was like, "Oh, you're a streamer, aren't you?" But he didn't tell me until after the game that he'd found me. Hopefully, he'll stop by at some point tonight on the stream. But he was a nice guy, very high energy. I think he streams as well. Going to school at Bucknell. A nice guy, and you'll see some interesting things in the game here. Let's jump over and do some analysis. So I'm playing white, and I play e4, and my opponent plays e5, and I play knight f3, and my opponent plays knight c6. So finally I get to play my Ruy Lopez, and my opponent actually plays into the line that I'm most familiar with, which is really exciting. My opponent plays into the exchange Ruy Lopez. So I play castles, and my opponent plays bishop g4, the pin variation, and I play h3. And my opponent, as soon as I played h3, my opponent touched his h-palm, and then he went, "Oh no!" And then he played h5. And the reason that he did that, so first of all, the move that I ended up playing was d3, just so we can get the variation right. But the reason that he did that is because if I take, then, like, you can see black is spoiled for choice here. You can play takes, and you have to move your knight somewhere. The best move is actually to just give the knight back, and if we look at the lines, the best move is now just to play d3. But, like, this position is not great for white. We can see that like something like this is very unpleasant to play against. This open file is just very strong. So I did not want to deal with that. And so instead, that's why I played d3. I was like, I'm not taking that. I'm not getting. This is called the fishing pole, where you can sort of like sacrifice a piece, but it ends up working out for you along the h file. So like, I'm not dealing with it. I'm playing d3. I spent a long time on that move actually. My opponent plays queen f6, thinking, okay, well at least he can trade all the stuff here and force me to double my pawns. But I'm actually okay with that. Like this is pretty much a drawn position, and so I just play bishop e3. Apparently, more resilient slightly is knight d2, according to my opponent. Yeah, knight bd2 is apparently the move. I was worried about getting this bishop active, so I played here, and my opponent did all of the trading here, which I was fine with, and then castled long. And this position is like a very slight benefit for white. Apparently, I was supposed to play bishop b6 and just play active immediately, like sort of bolster this pawn. But my opponent castled, and so now it's just going to be an endgame. Like no one's going to get mated. Like the fact that there's an open g file doesn't matter for anybody except for me, and my opponent's going to try and generate some tactics along here. So I played after a long thing. I played knight bd2. I wanted these rooks to be connected so that if a check ever came, which my opponent can't do this because my bishop defends, but if my bishop ever has to go anywhere, then I want my rooks to be connected so that I don't have a problem. This is apparently not the best approach. My opponent demonstrated as such by playing bishop b4. Like this attacks the knight, and so they can do this, but then I'm playing bishop against knight, and there are pawns on both sides of the boards, but the position might get locked, so it's unclear which side is going to be better in that circumstance. I played knight f4 here. I'm attacking the pawn. The bishop is sort of like awkwardly placed here. I felt like this was fine. My opponent plays f6 to defend this pawn. I played f4 because like I'm happy to trade off this doubled pawn, and then I'm going to have just like this beautiful structure of pawns here, or my opponent's going to have these doubled pawns, and I should be slightly better here, and the computer agrees, 0.2. And my opponent plays b5 because he doesn't like this knight here. So I move my knight back, and I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to trade now, like, this is fine. Like, I'm okay with this because I'm going to be able to open things up. I guess I don't really have a choice. Every other place for the knight is, like, dumb and gets taken. So I think the computer will tell me that the best move here is a3, and in fact, it does. Yeah, if we show the lines, the best move is a3, but the second best move is knight g2. So, like, I still have an advantage here. My opponent played bishop d6. Is that right? Oh, bishop d6. Yes. And so I played f5. I was like, cool. Well, now your knight's stupid. He literally, there's nowhere for him to go. Like, how's he gonna do anything How's he going to go anywhere? He can't go to any of these places from this square, and he can't go here because my bishop defends. So like, what are you going to do, knight? And so he played knight e7 nonetheless. He's trying to figure out which one of these moves to make. And I played f4 because I was like, cool. Well, we're going to get rid of these double pawns. The computer does not love f4. The computer thinks that I should just like move my king out and take advantage of this backward pawn and do all that stuff. But I played f4. I'm a man of action. My opponent should be calm here and move their rook apparently, but the move instead that my opponent played was g6. And so I think I'm supposed to take here before taking there, but I just took here. I didn't mind that his knight took. And I played f5 again. I was like, we're going to black it up. I'm going to have the pawn that advantaged here. He's going to have a backwards pawn, and I'm going to be able to take control of this file. And my opponent agrees. I think that if he goes in here, that's his best try. Like, it's going to be difficult to get this knight out, and I'm going to have to like move my knight around a million times in order to take that, and it's just going to be a bunch of moves, so it'll be hard. But my opponent's already going to struggle here because this pawn is going to be weak, and if we ever trade the rooks, then I'm going to be able to come get it. My opponent plays knight e7 again, and I play king h1. Now, king h1 is apparently, like, this is the blunder, apparently. They needed to go forward. King h1 is not the best move, but it maintains the idea. I didn't want to be on this diagonal, because, like, even though this pawn isn't going anywhere, I don't want to be x-rayed. So I was like, I'll go king h1, but apparently playing king h2, like, more energetically, getting ready to go up to the board matters. But you can already see I'm up plus 1.5. My opponent takes the file, and I also take the file. And then my opponent plays bishop b4, and so I play knight f3, just sort of extra defending this square, like this bishop's around here doing nothing. Yeah, so this bishop's not going to be able to do anything for a little while, and I was like, cool. So my opponent played bishop a5, he wants to maneuver around and trade these bishops, and I was like, I literally don't care. I played rook takes g8, he played rook takes, and I was like, cool, I'm going to go here. And he, before moving, wrote down rook takes and then wrote down king takes. But I did not play king takes, I played knight takes. And here was my thinking. Like, he's going to do this, I'm going to take and he's going to take. I'm going to go knight here, he's going to go knight here. I'm going to go, and then I want to play h5 and lock this pawn so that I can go knight here and knight here. And if I take instead with the king, then my knight's going to have a harder time maneuvering around to come get this pawn. So I was like, I'm taking with knight takes, I'm saving myself tempi. And some of this came to pass. So I played knight takes g1, he played bishop g6, I took and he took. And my opponent was playing very fast the entire time. He just had nothing did he think about for more than maybe a minute, which I felt good about because I could sit there and think, and then he played a move, and I was like, cool, so what's the best way to respond to this move? I was pleased about that. And so at this point, I played h4, and this is not the best move according to the computer, but the thing that I loved is it cemented this pawn here, and even though it allows an avenue for his knight to get in, I'm like literally not worried about it because I can maneuver my knight around and take both of these pawns, and even if he finds a way to get in with his knight to come take this pawn, like, these two passer pawns are much more important than me losing the c2 pawn. But I saw that when his knight was here, the only two places that he can go to make progress are here and here. So the first thing that I did after playing h4, my opponent played knight g8, and then I was like, cool, I'm going to move my king. I'm going to get my king up into the middle here, and you can see I'm already +2. And so then knight h6, like he's continuing his plan. So I played king f3, and my opponent played knight g4, just like he was planning, and I played knight e2, and my opponent played check. And so I was trying to figure out what to do here. Like, I could go here, but then he plays check, and then, like, I don't know, I have to go back here, and then I guess he has to move his knight back here. In fact, that's probably what I should do, because that gains me a tempo, so then if he wants to come back here with check, then when I come up, when he comes back, then I can, like, gain another tempo to go around, and I can be winning these pawns even faster. But I calculated, and I was like, let's play king g2. He can't check me, so he plays knight g4 and goes back. And I say, okay, well, I'm just going to go win these pawns. Like, it literally doesn't matter. So my opponent checks, and I play king f3. My opponent takes. And you can see now I'm like +5. Like, this is not what my opponent should be doing. He should be just trying to, like, check me a bunch, but it doesn't matter. He's probably not going to win this game regardless with the position that he had. It's just a question of, like, how quickly he loses. So then I played knight takes h5. I'm threatening this pawn. Like, all kinds of things are happening. My opponent plays king d7, and I take with check. My opponent said that he played there specifically so that I would take with check, and he can move here, king e7, and I play knight g4. He was hoping that I would go here to block my own pawn, but I thought I wanted to create this barricade here with my knight and my pawns. Like, he can't go to any of these squares, and if he steps over here, then I start running my pawn. So he should not do that. Nonetheless, he plays knight d4 check, and I try to figure out the right place. I went here, which is okay, it's fine. My opponent plays knight c2 check because he's just trying to be annoying. So I played king f2. Now, if I play here, like, he can't check me. I guess he can go, like, here, and I play this, and he's coming for this. But I went here, and then he went here, and I was like, this is dumb. This is dumb. So I just went here. I was like, fine, you got me. I go back. And my thought was he probably takes here, but then I take here, and the game's a little bit complicated, but, like, there's just no way he's stopping, like, these passed pawns that are also defended by this pawn. Like, these 4 pawns do not scare me very much. But he didn't even take this because he was worried about the timing. Like, he was like, oh, man, how am I going to be able to, like, get back in time to, like, do all this stuff? So he didn't even take. Like, he put his knight on b4, and then he didn't take. So I played king e2, and he played c5 because he's got to try and do something with these pawns eventually. So I took this pawn. Fine. My opponent plays king d6, and I go back with I did not go back with my knight. You would think you should go back with your knight. That's the easy thing to do. I played what I felt was a very classy move. Starting to take the knight, right? Oh no, take my knight. I played f6. If he takes, then I'm just queening. Like it's easy. And he was like, that was a classy move. So he did not take. When I played, like, I don't have to play this, but it felt good. So he played knight c2 because he wants to get back and get into the game. And so now he is threatening to move his knight here and with check and then take the knight because he can get his knight back to stop the queening. So now I move my knight back to g4. Is that right? And he does play check. And I play king e3 because now it's time to bring my king. That's the only way I'm going to be able to get in. And he plays knight e6. So now I can't get in. So I played e5 check. If he goes here, then I can start marching this pawn, and when this knight moves, then I'm going to be able to walk in. And that is what he played, king d5. And so I play h5. And so he plays c4. And he was surprised that I played takes. But, like, it seemed immaterial to me. Like, I might as well trade pawns, then I don't have to worry about, like, if I don't take this pawn, then he takes here, But I always saw that if my king ever moves, then this comes with check, and I can take the pawn when it's on the second rank. So I was like, we'll leave the pawn on the c file. That seems important to me. So now I play h6, and my opponent plays knight g5. He wants to stop both of these. He's a stubborn guy. And I play king f4, which my opponent thought was good. And then he played knight h7. It doesn't really matter which direction he goes, because my king's going to go here, and then it's going to be symmetrical regardless. But I played king f5. Like, there's no... He said that if I didn't play king f5 here, like if I played some other thing, that it was like a draw. If he goes here, the computer disagrees. But good to double check. I was interested to see whether or not that made sense. So I played king f5, and he played b5, because he wants to try and get something done with the pawns over here. But you can see I'm plus 18 in this position. It's just a matter of finishing. So I play king g6. My opponent plays knight f8 check. I play king g7. My opponent plays knight e6 check, and I play king g8. And now, no matter what, just these pawns are coming. After playing king g8, my opponent played knight g5. He's like, look, I'm taking one of your pawns. So I played f7. He took, I took. He played b4 because he wants to do this. So I play h7. He played c3. I took and he took, just so that I didn't have to worry about there being an extra pawn over there. And then I queened. Great, cool. It's plus 74. The computer doesn't quite see a mate at this depth, but it's still working. And then he played c2. And what my opponent did not realize, the last move of the game that was played was this. And then the game was over. But for a second, my opponent did not see that this was check and was very confused. They were like, did he just blunder, like letting me queen? Even that wouldn't have mattered because I'm still up a piece in a queen endgame, and I can check him. I'm going to have all the activity. Like, he's not going to be able to escape the checks and defend his queen. But, like, this was check, and so he's like, oh gosh, and he resigned at this point. And let's check out the game report. Let's give it another second here. Okay, so let's look at the report. The report says that I played 96.8 and my opponent played 75. And you can see, basically, it was just I had an advantage, and it was equal, and then I had an advantage, and then I just like very smoothly converted. I was very pleased with this. 96.8 is really strong. I think the other game that I won, I played 98.5 or something. So when I win, I win. But when I lose, I lose. It's not good.
Okay, guys, so it's the next day. I've had a little bit more time to see what the results of my unrated opponents were, since that's what we have to use to calculate our unrating. So first of all, our boy Peyton LaRosa from round 2, or from game 2 rather, he beat a 1408, so he actually now has a rating of 1387, which is great because the higher his rating goes, the more my win against him counts. And the opponent that I played today has a half point. He lost to a 2038 and a 1667, and he drew a 1419, and then he lost to me. So he's at 1133, and so that means that I have a performance rating of 1599 in this tournament, and my new rating is 1348. So we will have actually regained all of the points from that we lost in our previous tournament and actually gained some more. So that's great. All right, I think that's all I have. Anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. But yeah.